Good morning, and welcome to another incredible version of Diatribes from the Voice of Doom. Now here's your incredulous and incorrigible host, Voice of Doom. Good morning. Doing an early one. I'm a little tired. Didn't have a very good day yesterday. And before I go on with my screed, I want to thank my stalwart fan, Nick, for his thoughts and his comments regarding my son, Benjamin. And I appreciate your watching, because if you didn't, I wouldn't be doing this, because I could just talk to myself at home without having to put it on YouTube. So thank you for watching. I know I'm being shadow banned because it's been 2.5 years and I've had no momentum. So I've said some bad things on this channel, and I know that they don't want to ban me outright, but they don't promote me out there at all. So that's just the way it is. But I want to go on with the topic that I started yesterday, having to do with adults running the show and other things. First, an update. Things are going from bad to worse now. What happened is this. A hospital in Gaza City was blown up. And the intrepid Fourth Estate immediately said that Israel blew up a hospital. Now that's the dangerous part of having kids running the world, is they don't do their homework because the dog ate it. And they just want to scoop, and they want to make money, and they want a headline, and so they say whatever comes to mind first. Well, Israel's been bombing Gaza, and a hospital got bombed, ergo, it stands to reason that Israel bombed a hospital. So the idiots in the MSM and etc. put out that information, not knowing anything, and then the whole world starts blowing up more. Now, it's one thing to have 10 million people with their own radio or their own television network at their disposal, in their hand, and transmitting news as they see it. You can take whatever they say and weigh it according to what you think their credibility is and how much homework they did. But when the mainstream, who have the big cameras and the big studios, just willy-nilly put out information, they will start World War III. Because according to all the evidence that Israel and the United States have painstakingly put together in order to quell a total uprising of the entire Middle East, is that Israel did not in fact bomb a hospital, but a hospital was bombed. How was it bombed? It was bombed because Hamas was shooting off rockets and one went bad. It's kind of like Wile E. Coyote. They shoot one off and it goes circling around and bombs themselves. Now that's what the evidence shows. Israel said, for one thing, we weren't shooting rockets at the time that hospital blew up. For another thing, we did a tracking of the rockets, and we saw that it was a rocket that was shot from Gaza that blew up the hospital. And the third reason is, I can't remember, but there were 3 reasons. Now, Hamas could have had an errant rocket blow up a hospital, coincidentally. It didn't blow up a gas station, or didn't blow up an apartment building. It blew up a hospital. Or is it within the realm of possibility that a savage organization such as Hamas would blow up their own hospital in order to exacerbate the situation? I think that's very possible after seeing what they've done before, which I believe. Now, I've already said over the years that perception is everything. And people perceive things the way they want to perceive them, and they believe what they want to believe. And if you have a bias against Israel, it doesn't matter what they say or what evidence they show in front of you, they will believe that Israel bombed a hospital. Now, there were masses and masses and masses and masses of people protesting last night in Lebanon. And apparently Israel is going to go to war directly with Lebanon. They have been talking about it, and they've made no bones about it, because Lebanon is lobbing bombs. And they've made a buffer zone in the northern border, and it's obvious that they're going to have two fronts. Another thing that's happened is this Abbas character called off the rest of his meetings with Petri dish because of this hospital business. And what I've seen this morning is very interesting, because apparently the Palestinian Liberation Army is rising up against Hamas. So that should be very interesting. I want to see what they do about that. Will Netanyahu meet with Abbas and say, let's work together to get rid of these guys, and then we can get on with maybe, just maybe, having a two-state system and getting along? Or will Israel say, we don't really trust the Palestinian Liberation Army, and we don't know where their sentiments will lie after they help us with this Hamas business? Now, I didn't mention a few things yesterday, and that had to do with the fact that, well, I'll go back in history a bit. Now, we had a big fracas in Central America in the 80s, and when I was a lefty, I went out on the streets with signs and a bunch of other idiots saying, hands off Nicaragua and hands off El Salvador, because we were down there trying to fight against counterinsurgencies. We weren't fighting directly, just like now, but it caused a whole big brouhaha because they shot down an American plane full of munitions in Nicaragua, and then the Iran-Contra scandal came out. I can do a whole bunch of diatribes on that. I know it by heart. And I was on the side of, I didn't like Aldi North. And I didn't like the whole thing. But that was back in the days when they actually had hearings that were real hearings. You 5 minutes is up. Well, I lost 2 minutes. But I'm just saying that because there was these people called the Contras in Nicaragua, and they were the ones fighting against the communist regime. And it turned out that a lot of these Contra leaders got money for their war, and they lived high on the hog in the Caribbean islands, in Aruba or wherever, Bahamas, anywhere, and Bermuda. So the leaders were living high on the hog while the fighters were in the jungle fighting against the Nicaraguan army. Same thing's happening now. The Hamas leadership is in Doha, which is where my kid's going to be in about a month. They're in Doha, living high on the hog, living lavish lifestyles, while their Hamas underlings are getting blown away. No sympathy for the underlings, but it's just the same pattern, okay? over and over again. The leaders live high on the hog, away from the fray, while the rank and file get ranked and filed. So the only thing is to talk to whoever's in charge of Qatar, the emirate, and say, give these people up or you're going to be in big trouble. Which means bombing some really nice buildings, because Doha is a futuristic city of magnificent proportions. And when that starts blowing up, then we know that everything's coming down. But I just thought I'd put that in as an aside, the way these leaders are so brave at the front, that they are spending their time poolside in a Doha hotel, and driving very nice cars from what I understand, and their children are living very well also. So the corruption within the corruption within the corruption is disgusting. These leaders have to be grabbed, dragged, and hung. And if Qatar doesn't help us, then I guess Qatar's on the wrong side of history, aren't they? Now let's go on with the adults taking care of things now. Let's get back to Petri Dish. He's in Israel right now. He'll probably spend a day there, if that, and he'll be flying right back. He makes a cameo appearance and looks like a world leader. And Netanyahu has to pretend like he's talking to a sentient human being with all due respect, and nothing will get done. But the puppet masters in Iran have made no bones about the fact they support Hamas. They've made no bones about the fact that if Israel does a ground attack of Gaza, that they will respond. And they made no bones about the fact that they support Hezbollah, which is a much bigger organization than Hamas. And yet Petri continually says there's no evidence that Iran had anything or knew anything about this. Now, why would he do that? He does that because he does not want to implicate Iran. Why doesn't he? Because he's compromised. There, I said it. He's compromised by all these countries. He was compromised by Ukraine. He was compromised by Iran, due to whatever malfeasance he's done with his no-account son. So he is basically saying Iran is innocent. Now, there were other presidents in history that wanted to attack countries just on the basis of the fact that they're pains in the butts. GW, the younger, comes to mind. Iraq really had no direct connection to 9/11, and yet he wanted to attack Iraq with a passion, and he even probably made up a bunch of lies and fibs and exaggerations, weapons of mass destruction, to rationalize us having a second Iraq war. So just Iraq being a pain in the butt in general was reason enough to go after them. Now, why don't we want to go after Iran? I don't even give a crap if Iran knew about it or not. They've been a pain in the butt since the Ayatollah took over in 1979. They've been nothing but trouble. Well, the innocent Iranians. Oh, and by the way, the Ayatollah is not Iranian, and he's not Persian. He's Palestinian. So just take that for what it's worth. Yeah, the poor Iranians, they don't like the government. We don't have to punish them because of it. Well, they'll keep the government going that the people hate because you're afraid of injuring or killing innocent civilians that hate the government. You start bombing the hell out of Tehran, and then the people will rise up and everything will be taken care of in a matter of weeks. And they can go back to getting a Shah or whatever the hell they want. But more adults taking care of business. Okay. We have adults in the Congress who, just as they were starting to make a little bit of headway, they decide, let's oust our speaker because I don't agree with him. He didn't give me what I wanted. Now, they're going to keep doing that. They can't get a speaker. And now we're paralyzed. We can't get anything done without a speaker. We can't have any votes without a speaker. We can't do nothing. Just sit around and look at each other because we have no speaker. So they're voting for a speaker, but they can't agree on getting one because they need something like 217 votes to get it, and the D's are all going to vote against whatever the Goppers come up with just on principle. So the Goppers have to fight amongst themselves in order to get a consensus. So there's a bunch of adults running things. Armageddon's happening, and we're sitting here trying to figure out who's going to be the speaker. They should have gotten the speaker right away and said, we don't have time for this bullshit. But they don't. Now, what other kids? I haven't heard hide nor hair from what we call the Senate of the United States, used to be. They're the people that are the big mucky mucks in Congress. 2 senators per state. And they're very powerful people. Have you heard anything from them? Have they done anything? Schumer is pure-blooded Jewish persuasion, pure as the driven snow. I haven't heard a damn thing from him. He's always up there on his podium lambasting orangey or saying some idiocy. He doesn't waste any time getting up to the podium to start yammering. But I haven't heard one peep from him on this Armageddon business. And McConnell is probably comatose. He's probably laying in bed right now staring vacantly off into space. He's the leader of the minority. So we really don't need a Senate. I would say disband it. What good are they? If they were gone tomorrow, no one would notice because they've done nothing and said nothing. And did I get everything in I wanted to? I think so. The Senate are children. The Congress are children. The Fourth Estate press are children. And by having all these children running this show, of course, Petri dishes degenerated to an infantile state. With all these people running the show, you see what happens, don't you? All kinds of bad things can happen. Now, gas is going to skyrocket. And that's probably why they're not bombing Tehran. Not that we buy gas from them, but it has a ripple effect. And they shouldn't have even allowed Iran to make all the money they make now on oil, but it's all about keeping the price down in Carson City. We keep it down below $5, people won't complain. And they'll do it by hook or crook. I can get into the hypocrisy of that later. It would take too long to talk about how they've been total two-faced impunicrits. You know, we don't want to drill for oil in our country because it's unclean, but we'll buy it from Venezuela, which is filthy. So we've got ourselves into a bit of a jam. I predict that since Putin and Xi Happiness are meeting today, that they are discussing their next move. Let's strike while the iron's hot, because what used to be the United States is distracted by this Armageddon business. So we will see a escalation in Ukraine, which is being forgotten, being thrown by the wayside. And we will finally see China take Taiwan, and I bet you they take it with no trouble. I don't think we're going to do a damn thing about it because we've got too much other things going on. So I gave you a glimmer of hope with this Palestinian army going up against Hamas, but it just muddies the waters, and billions of people are already on the street protesting. So we'll see how the rest of this week goes out, but it's a day-by-day thing. And by tonight, I could do another diatribe talking about the decimation of Lebanon. And I already told you they destroyed the airports in Aleppo and Damascus, Syria, which is a very aggressive thing to do. From Syria's standpoint, they have every right to go after Israel. So, we'll see what happens. I don't think it's going to be good. I don't like the idea of my kid being in Qatar or Riyadh or Kuwait, but at least I'll have a ringside seat to the whole thing. He can report to me. All right. Thanks, everybody, and thanks, Nick, for your thoughts. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.